Welcome everybody to our afternoon webinar here. So my name is Karen Lanigan. I'm Head of Member Experience here with Chartered Accountants Ireland, and I also have been responsible for the career coaching and recruitment service that we offer here with in the Institute. I'm also joined by my colleague Dave Reardon, who is also a Chartered Accountant himself, and he works alongside me here in the career service and is the main point of contact in relation to our career coaching and career guidance service. So essentially what we want to do today is obviously help you in terms of the career decisions that you need to make at this stage of your career. So whether you're joining us and you're recently qualified, or whether you're coming out of contract over the next number of months, we feel that the content that we've put together for you this afternoon will be relevant irrespective of what stage you're at in that process. So what we want to do is to provide you with some top career tips that are relevant to you at this stage. So obviously, you know, whether you've qualified or you're coming up to that stage, the content here will be relevant, including a job update. And we take that information from the day-to-day contacts we have through our own recruitment service here. So it is very much, you know, an up-to-date overview and insight into the market. Similarly, we'll look at exploring international opportunities using and leveraging the Institute network, and also then we look at the importance of networking overall as part of your career development process, and how you can best do that by leveraging the contacts that you have or the network that you have through the Institute, both here in Ireland and internationally. Similarly, we'll also talk you through the wellbeing supports that are available to you as a student, but also as a member through CA support. And we'll also outline the range of supports that are available to you at every stage of your career as a chartered accountant. So the other thing I just wanted to highlight, because many of you, if you haven't already gone through to membership, will be going on that journey over the coming weeks and months. And I just wanted to take this opportunity, firstly, to congratulate you on getting to this really important milestone. But it is just the beginning of that career journey, and there's so much opportunity ahead of you that the benefits of membership will facilitate. So obviously you've got the qualification in its own right and the brand recognition that goes with that, and it hence opens up doors and career opportunities for you. You have a huge network of over 29,000 other chartered accountants to tap into. As I mentioned, there are the international opportunities. The chartered qualification is an international passport and opens up the opportunity to travel abroad. We do have a full range of career supports available to you. And as well as that, then we provide opportunities for you to network through our events, our district societies, and also opportunity for further development, career development and training and learning and development as well. And also Accountancy Ireland, which is a really fantastic magazine with lots of different topics covered there, and CA support as well. And I'll go through that in a little bit more detail with you shortly. So as I mentioned, like, you're all at a point now that where you will have to make some important career decisions. Whether that is that you want to stay in practice, move on into industry, or really just kind of take a moment to stand back and say, well, look, now that I'm qualified, where is it that I want my career to go? And this is, as I said, an important time. So we are here as your institute to provide you with impartial advice to help you make those critical decisions that will form the foundations of your career. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Dave, who, based on his own experiences of becoming a chartered accountant and his years and years of experience of dealing with members, both through the Institute and also in previous roles in the recruitment market, is going to share some advice with you. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, years and years of experience. I'm kind of getting on at this stage. But it does feel like yesterday, actually, that I qualified, to be honest with you. I was a latecomer to the qualification. So I do understand, I suppose, quite closely the crossroads you're at this stage as newly qualified. And for many of you, you're kind of putting the books aside now, and you're facing into a lot of decisions, kind of assessment alternatives, and you're trying to make decisions very quickly. So hopefully, what I'm going to run through some very quick slides and keep it as punchy as possible. But what I want to try and do is give you as many really good, useful tips that are a little bit left of centre as much as possible, because I think newly qualifieds are quite tuned in nowadays, and hopefully my tips are useful in that regard. Um, and hopefully they're useful not just for the months ahead, as you face into maybe the market in the next 6 months, but also further down the ACA life cycle and career pathway. So we might kick off just with a quick view of the market. Um, and as indicated here, Q1 and Q2 this year, Q1 is actually quite good. Very solid start to the year, plenty of opportunities for newly quals. And I think Q2 over the next 3 or 4 months is set to look pretty stable and solid as well. We'll go into that a little bit more. But one point around this is that I think employers, particularly in the corporate space, are actually very tuned in to the seasonality of the newly qualified job market at the moment. And by that I mean a lot of newly qualified are going to be coming out onto the market in March, April, and then those who did their masters will be coming out in October, November, thereabouts. And employers are aware of that, so you can have a little bit of a seasonality, a dip during the summer and a peak during those periods. So demand still looks good. Obviously, less ACAs or newly qualified are traveling at the moment, so there's going to be a few more in the market. It makes it a little bit more competitive. But in saying that, I still think opportunities are widespread and good, depending on what sector and what area you go into. And on that, I mean, there are a lot of emerging sectors. There's a lot of change, accelerated change in the market at the moment. There's new companies coming in. Brexit's impacting. It's a constantly shifting and changing landscape. And with that in mind, I mean, it's funny. We've seen for the first time ever, really, we've seen the market split in half between, a buoyant half with healthcare, pharmaceutical, fintech, technology, etc. And on the other side, we've got hospitality and entertainment and leisure and so on that are starting to dip and find it difficult. So be vigilant of that when you look at the market this year, and try and stay the right side of the fence in terms of what sectors are doing well, and what new sectors are coming into Ireland. There's obviously new ways of working, a lot of flexibility, a lot of decentralized working at the moment, which means that as a newly qualified ACA, you don't have to, if you're based in Cork, you don't have to just look in Cork. You can look outside in the wider Munster region because you have opportunities to work from home for large parts of the week, etc. Brexit, then it's easy to kind of look past that and forget about that at the moment, but it will have an increasing effect, I'd say, on the market for newly qualified as the year develops. Not least in a positive sense for FS. Members with FS client experience, and the IFSC is seeing a bit of a lift as a result of Brexit. You've got the likes of Barclays, JP Morgan ramping up their hiring and building a bigger hub in Ireland at the moment off the back of Brexit. So probably a positive trend in that regard, but still a bit remains to be seen, I suppose, in terms of the longer impact. Karen's going to touch on the travel and international opportunities piece, so I won't go into that too much. But hopefully the end of this year we see that start to lift. I mean, if you were looking at internal audit opportunities, for example, you're probably not going to be doing an awful lot of travel with those kind of roles for the next 10 months or so. But fingers crossed that comes back. One comment around that we would have seen in the media is that economic uncertainty is still there as a bit of a cloud over to the left. We're not seemingly not facing into a recessionary kind of piece, and things look pretty solid. In fact, I think in recent articles we would have read that Ireland was one of the largest growing or the fastest growing economies in the world last year, which is I found pretty surprising. But it looks set to be positive for the remainder of the year. I put 8-10% there to remind myself that the unemployment rate has been coming down and down, regardless of the PUPs, etc. But it's still pretty positive in that regard, and the overall message is that the market for newly quals is quite good moment. There's also a link there at the bottom of that slide, just in relation to the Irish Times. They do actually a very comprehensive hub on careers, so you can have a quick look at that as well. So that's the overall view of the market at the moment. Just moving on then to, if I can, I don't think it's moving on. There you go. Thanks, guys. Yeah, this is just one quick slide to highlight the Accountancy Ireland main article by the EY chief economist, indicating that the outlook for Ireland in 2021 is a strong rebound, and that's a really good message. Highly recommended article to read, and some really good messaging in there, very particular to newly quals. If you're heading into interviews this year, you know, it's really worthwhile having that kind of information and some points from that article in your arsenal going through as well. Also, one thing that I would have loved to have when I qualified actually was a quick, punchy kind of view of the market in terms of what roles could I potentially step into. You know, I thought, well, it's either going to be a financial accountant role in industry or stay in practice as an audit senior. But there's actually a multitude of different avenues, titles, roles, sectors that you can go down. And really, I think you're heading into a kind of a research phase over the next few months. And this will give you a quick kind of helicopter view of all the different types of roles that we in the careers team deal with on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. You know, it shows you the variety and the different types of roles you can go down. And it's not even limited to that. Like, members will use the qualification in very different ways. So these are just the basic kind of finance options for you. But, you know, members travel around the world. I was speaking to a member actually who's an FCA a couple of days ago. She's just back from an international 30-year traveling the world with a not-for-profit as a country leader, where she started off her career with the UN. So, you know, it's a fantastic branding qualification. It can take you anywhere, but these are some of the obvious steps straight out of immediate qualification and worth having a look through. If I could pop that on one slide, guys. Thanks, Mel. The salary level is always something that newly qualified ACAs want to have a quick look at. The key messaging around this is that salary levels have remained strong. They haven't taken a dip. They still stand at, you know, in around that 50 to 55 or even 55 to 60 for exceptional performers, both in, that's in euros, in ROI, and then the equivalent then in Northern Ireland for our Ulster colleagues. And, you know, the market should support that heading into the next 6 months. Benefits, you know, that's where sometimes you can get a little bit of a differential. Within financial services, you often get a slightly more robust benefits package with, you know, bonuses and pension and healthcare and stuff like that being a feature. But one cautionary point maybe towards the end of this is that don't get overly focused on salary. You know, you're at the very first step of building your career, and salary, you know, is an element, but it shouldn't be top of the list. The company you move into, the role you take, and what path it sets you out on are more the key points to be aware of. But it's nice to know where the temperature is in terms of salary as well. I just move on from that. Great, thanks. So just 2 more slides for me, guys. And again, I'm trying to make it as punchy as possible in terms of key tips. When I speak to members on a weekly basis, I try to bring them around to thinking about their career planning as a long-term project. It's something you should work on every month, year, every Friday, whatever works for you. I highly recommend setting it up as a file that you chip away at constantly, you know, a spreadsheet with multiple tabs, whatever way you want to do it. But once you make it a habit, make time for it, you know, that's where I see the cleverest members really getting ahead in their career, because they give time, attention, and planning to it, if that makes sense. And you know, not just that, constantly assess the risk in terms of the path you're on. So how to minimize that? Are you moving into a sector that's starting to come under fire? Are you getting very narrow in terms of your focus and your use of the qualification? Just keep sticking the head up and making sure you're going in the right direction, and you're not building yourself into a corner. Um, at this point, at the crossroads you're at in terms of newly qualification, put in loads of research, speak to loads of people, have lots of conversations with a variety of different people, peers, mentors, people who've gone ahead of you, partners in your practice, anyone who you regard as a good advisor. And mentioning mentors there, like we do a program in the Institute where we'll match you up with mentors. I'd highly recommend having a selection of mentors at this point in your career, whether it's a family member who's, business savvy, whether it's someone the Institute links you with who's in a sector that you're really interested in, I think it's worthwhile having someone who knows you very well and can comment around you, your personality, and also having someone who can give you some business advice and put all their advice together to map out your next steps. Be deliberate, map it out, build it. Again, that's just kind of a reminder about taking ownership of your career path at this point. Like, if I wish someone actually had told me upon qualification that you are now on a career pathway build and you need to own it, spend time on it, and be ambitious for it. And whether you know it or not, you are on a career pathway. So just take a bit of ownership of that. Self-assessment is always a really good way of kicking all that off, trying to understand yourself, what you're good at, where your weaknesses are, that bit of self-assessment. We do questionnaires in the careers team, of course, around all of that as well. There's plenty online that you can self-examine. I'd recommend doing that as well. Secondments I just thrown in there as a comment, because often when you're making a transition, whether it's from Big Four or small, medium-sized practice, secondments can help you get over that hurdle of not having industry experience to get into a role. So if you've got 3 months even with a client, it can break that. It can give you a little bit of a platform to move into industry, and it can be a differential and a differentiator versus anyone else that's going for a role. Unusual comment here, but allow for life. The point around that really, and I've kind of come to realize this recently, is that a lot of you will be in your 20s and you're very ambitious for your career. Half of you probably want to be CFOs in multinationals, etc. Like, you need to be malleable in terms of your career, if that's the right word. You need to be prepared to pivot, to change direction, and find a balance. In the next 10 years, you're probably going to face into things like marriage, house, kids, international travel, hopefully not illness, things like that. And you just need to take stock at each stage and remember that career is only a piece of the puzzle as well at the end of the day. Then Karen, I think, will touch heavily on the building a network piece. My only comment around that is that it takes time to build. Start it now, don't leave it too late. By the time you're an FCA, it will be literally the most important aspect of your career journey. So you have to start now. It takes a long time to build it. I've seen a lot of members who come back from international postings and they literally have to restart their. So definitely want to tune in on as a key tip. My final slide, and just some career tips as you kind of head out into the market. Karen might touch on it as well, but your brand, build it, guard it. Whether you realize you have one or not, you do. You have a personal brand now. You're fully qualified, and the image there is of Veronica Hanning's book, which is highly recommended to read. You get it through the Institute as well, and that'll give you a good insight into it. It's synonymous with LinkedIn, which really is your appendix to your CV nowadays. It's the first thing that employers go looking at. one small tip around that in terms of building your brand, if you've got a sector that you're really interested in, like for example sustainability, highly emerging sector at the moment, connect in with 10 people every week that are very prominent in that space. Build your circle of reference in around that, and start using LinkedIn very proactively. Equally, using LinkedIn to connect in with a few ACAs in, say, your firm that have gone ahead of you 2 or 3 years and have been out in the market and experienced that. See where they've gone, have a look at their profiles. How are they building their career path as they're 3-5 years ahead of you, and link in with them, and follow the companies perhaps that you like that they have joined. Yeah, it's a good point, I think, around year one post-qualification here, where you do have a little bit of a license to try and test a few different roles, do something a little bit more quirky, or test out a sector that you're not sure if you're interested in, etc. You're not held as much to a particular fixed path a year or even year two after your qualification. That's why sometimes looking at a contract option can be really a really good option, on a non-committal basis. A lot of members move back into practice after they've spent a year in the industry because they mightn't have made the right move. But the point here is that you can try something a little bit different. I had a member, for example, a year ago who came down from the north, was brand newly qualified, enjoyed technology systems, etc. And when an opportunity came up to move into an ERP consultation role with a finance flavor, he jumped at it because he said, look, if I do it for 12 months and it's not for me, what did I lose? If nothing else, I gained some fantastic systems related experience that I can add to my skill set. And I'm only 12 months out of a large practice. I can move back into it, or I can go on into another industry role, and that's true. So you have nothing to lose with that kind of an attitude. Do have a look at the ACA Career Pathway Hub on the Institute website. Karen's going to allude to that as well. I constantly mention it to members at every stage of the Chartered Accountancy life cycle because it gives you a really good in-depth view of the skills and developmental skills that you need to be picking up along the way. And it's a really nice sense check as to where you are on the journey. Contract options, the gig economy is a new buzzword in recent years. It's as we said, changing in that direction. So be open to contracts is the key message around that. And maybe my final point for me is it's a little bit nerdy, but I always remember training with a member who, once he qualified, he was getting the train in from the Midlands every single day to our practice. And once he qualified, he took the entire back catalogue of all his Accountancy Ireland publications, and every single day he read another Accountancy Ireland. And after a month or two, he was incredibly informed about the market, everything that was happening, up to date in terms of everything really, given that Accountancy Ireland is the Bible for the Institute. So well worth having a look through the back issues on that and doing a bit of catch up. That's it from me, and best of luck anyway.
Thanks, Dave. Some really good insights there, and some very useful tips, and particularly like some of the insights that you've provided from your experiences, not only yourself but also from other members. And I think that's a key takeaway for people here today, is to reach out to others and other members, to learn from them. So thank you very much for that. Just to point out as well, like we're really happy to take any questions that you have. So if you do have questions, pop them in the chat for us there, and we can take those questions at the end. So as Dave has already mentioned, like leveraging the chartered network is really, really important. And you did mention as well, Dave, and rightly so, that obviously it's never too early to start developing that network. And that is one of the key benefits of being a member, that you can leverage that network. And as you go throughout your career, particularly when it comes to working at a more senior level, you will find that network will absolutely benefit your career, whether it's tapping into the knowledge and experiences of others, whether it's having a mentor who is a chartered accountant, or indeed when at a senior level you're looking for your next career move. Often those opportunities are introduced to you through a member of your network. So it's really important to invest that time now. And a bit like Dave said, if you're putting together a plan, incorporate networking as part of that plan, and set yourself even a little goal every month to kind of say, look, I'm going to reach out to two new people every month, and start really building on that network. And really this process starts even from school, because we all have school friends or contacts that we kind of meet again, or we stay in touch with throughout our personal lives, but also our professional lives. So it's a really good idea even to go back into LinkedIn, see who you went to school with, other people that you've worked with, and start reaching out and connecting with them. And it's a great way in which to start building your network, and then using LinkedIn as that tool to essentially manage your network. So it's that repository of your network, and it's also a way in which you can reach out to people and keep in touch to know what's going on out in the marketplace. What are other people at your other chartered accountants or professionals at your level doing? The other thing to consider is, like, I suppose making the most of the events that we run here through the Institute. Obviously they're not face to face at the moment, but actually the virtual environment is probably that bit easier to connect in and attend events, whether that's from a social perspective, or whether they're more technical events, because we certainly have noticed an increase in the number of members logging in for various different events. So for example, we had a young professionals event on managing your personal finances last week, and we had over I think it was close on 300 actually members who logged in for that. So the opportunity is there. There's also an opportunity for you to join various different committees. So for example, you guys, the most relevant one would be the young professionals, but there's also local district societies, so the Leinster Society if you're in Dublin, and other societies both regionally and internationally as well. So there's great potential there for you to link into those networks. And for example, if you were looking to go abroad, we have the Chartered Accountants Worldwide Network, and also then other networks both in Europe and in other locations such as Dubai, for example. So it's absolutely worth connecting into that network that you now have at your disposal. And that is one of the key values. There's no doubt about it in terms of that connection and that opportunity, and it will open doors for you by being a chartered accountant. So speaking of opening doors, the qualification is absolutely an international passport. So we have a wide range of reciprocal arrangements in place. And by that, what I mean is that if you travel abroad, that your qualification is automatically recognized. So for example, you can go to Australia, you can go to the UAE. There's numerous locations that you can go to where your qualification is already recognized. And we have a whole wide range of networks in these locations. So for example, if you went to the UK and you were working in London, you could join the London Society. Similarly, in Australia, we have a district society in Melbourne. We also have one in Sydney. And then in the US, we have a US network through Chartered Accountants Worldwide. So really, there's a huge opportunity there for you. And if I think of the members that I would know myself who are working abroad, like we have a member that comes to mind. She's working in London in the banking sector, and he's had a very successful career that has seen him move across various different roles within the banking sector. Similarly, I was only speaking with a member recently who returned from working in Costa Rica for quite a number of years, where he was working in a strong commercial and operations role within the agricultural sector there, and has moved now back to Ireland for that business, and still has an internationally focused role, but is based in Ireland. And another member that comes to mind is somebody who's working in Dubai. She's been working there, I would say, probably close on 5 years now, and has had a number of very senior roles within the insurance sector there. So it just gives you a flavour and a sense of the opportunities that are there. And I suppose that we have been a little bit limited in terms of travel over the last 12 months, but we are starting to see certain economies opening up again. So I do think come the end of the year that those opportunities will open up. And one location that comes to mind in particular is Australia. I was speaking with one of my counterparts in the Institute of Australia and New Zealand last week, and they've actually got to a stage now where their economy is opening up again, and they're starting to plan events. They're not quite at the stage where there's travel permitted as yet externally to the country, but I do feel that, like, as time goes on and everything is going well, that will be possible again later on in the year. So it's one to watch. Like, if you are planning, don't assume that that's not necessarily on the cards for this year, because it may well be, and it's a good time to start planning that now, and reaching out and checking out the opportunities, because you do have that greater mobility. And Dave alluded to this earlier as well, that there are increased opportunities because of the virtual world as well, that you don't necessarily have to travel abroad to I suppose work abroad, for want of a better expression, that you could be working here in Dublin for an international business, based out of the US, etc. So there are greater opportunities now as a result of the virtual world that we're living in now. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, one of the benefits of becoming a member is access to a whole range of free career support. So that includes impartial and confidential careers advice. So you can actually meet with us one-to-one for free sessions around your CV, interview advice, career planning. And we very much take, as I said, an impartial approach to this, and give you the best in class advice based on many years of experience working with finance professionals and chartered accountants. So I would urge you to leverage that benefit. Similarly, we do have a career mentor program. So we have over 160 mentors on the program who are all chartered accountants. So if you're interested in obtaining a mentor, let us know, and we can put you in touch with a mentor. And we have a really wide range of sectors, disciplines, locations included. And again, because we're in the virtual world, there's no reason why we couldn't connect you with a mentor, say, for example, in Australia. If you're looking at moving to Australia, we can help you join the dots there. Dave mentioned the career pathway tool, and essentially what that is a competency map. So you can go in, say, for example, now as a newly qualified, that early stage of your career, and look at what the competencies are that you will need at each stage of your career. And you can go in then and see, well, look, where are the gaps for me? What do I need to work on? And importantly, then there will be activities in there that will be suggested to you that you should look at to develop your skills in a particular area. So, for example, networking might be something that you need to work on, and we will have examples there of how you can go in and develop your network. There will be links to webinars that we have done in that area, books that are available, podcasts, for example, that might be relevant to you, and also as well links with various different district societies. So it's a really great tool, and we do have a whole range of other online career resources. So we would constantly add new articles to that, so that you have an up-to-date repository of relevant career resources. And if there's something that you find isn't there, let us know, because either we can give you that advice one-on-one, or we're more than happy to take away a particular topic and build out an article or a webinar on that. And similarly, there's a whole host of recorded free careers webinars on our website as well, so be sure to check those out. So that was the career pathway tool. And if you're going into our website, if you go in under professional development, and it will bring you to the tab for the career pathway tool. So just in terms of navigation, that is the best way to get there. So I just thought I would mention CA support because, I suppose in the environment that we're working in, there's a much greater emphasis on well-being. And as both a student and as a member, you do have access to a whole range of well-being support. So, from student right through, through your whole career. And I really actually like this pathway because it shows the different, I suppose, stress points that we can all face at different stages in your career. So you're just coming out of the exam stress piece and trying to balance exams with work. Then maybe going to the next stage of your career, it's the stress of figuring out your workplace or the career path, dealing with workplace issues, whether that's challenging personalities you're dealing with, or it could be diversity issues similarly. Or for other members that I would deal with regularly, it might be that they've taken a career break and they're returning to the workplace, and the challenges and stresses that come with that. So for each of these I suppose touch points, we do have supports in place, both through the career service and CA support. And what CA support finds typically is that I suppose the biggest number of inquiries that they get is somebody referring themselves. So a self-referral case, somebody who's in their early 40s, maybe somebody who's working in a mid-sized business and struggling with work issues, and maybe that they're, I suppose, bringing those home and they're translating into relationship issues. So we have a whole range of supports in this particular area, including the website. So again, similarly to the careers website, there's a whole range of different resources and supports that are available to you there as well. So there's a counselling service, there's wellness coaching. Like I know I spoke with a member recently who had lost his job. There was a lot of pressure on him, both financially and getting back into the workplace, and that unfortunately had resulted in panic attacks for him. So he really just wasn't in the space of being able to go to interviews. So the first port of call really was for us to make sure that he was in the right frame of mind to attend interviews. So he found like coaching sessions and professional counseling sessions really helped him. We then supported him with his CV and his interview, and now thankfully he is back working, and things are going really well for him. So do bear this in mind when, I suppose, as Dave said, life happens, and it does from time to time, that we are here to support you. And there are the contact details. So CA support at charteredaccountants.ie is probably the best way to make contact with our colleagues there. So really, I suppose what I want to kind of, I suppose, by way of recap, is to say, look, this is just the start of the journey. You have like a really exciting career ahead of you. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Both now in a positive market, as Dave outlined, there's some really good opportunities that are coming up. The market is positive. There's good activity in terms of recruitment. We are here to support you both in terms of the careers advisory piece. We also have our own recruitment service. So if you are actively looking, do reach out to us, and you can contact us. Our contact details are listed here. We're also available if you would like to book sessions, one-to-one sessions, to help you with your CV and interview preparation before you go out into the I suppose the job market. We'd like certainly welcome a conversation with you to give you one-on-one careers advice and tips that we can take you through your CV, make sure that it's doing you justice, helping you to prepare for interviews, particularly in a virtual world. There's some very I suppose important considerations there, just to make sure that you are making the impact that you want to. So do reach out to us, pop us an email, and then we'll come back to you with a view to setting up a virtual career consultation. So I'm just going to have a look now, just in terms of questions in the chat there, just to see what those questions are and see how we can work our way through those. Just bear with me a second now as I go down through them here. And then
there, Karen, from Sinead, I think I responded, but I'm not sure if they actually went out properly. There was one from Sinead around
Oh, the qualification, I see
really
this.
good.
And this, yeah, it's a very relevant question, actually. So I'm just going to read out the question so that everybody understands. And the question is, when you leave your firm on the 30th of April and have your CA diary completed, FAE exams passed, are you a qualified accountant then, or do you need to wait until the graduation in October or whenever that takes place? So I suppose qualifying and the conferring or the graduation are two separate things. So basically, once you have completed your diary and you've completed your exams, so what you then need to do is actually apply for membership. So that's, I suppose, an admission process, an administration process that you will need to go through. And once that has been completed and you get confirmation that that process has been completed, you are then admitted as a member and you can call yourself a qualified chartered accountant. So once that administrative process is completed, you don't have to wait for the graduation in October. The graduation is basically I suppose, a celebration more so than anything. The actual, I suppose, piece in terms of being admitted as a member will happen before that. So to answer your question, no, you don't need to wait till the graduation.
And just to add to that, Karen, for the
Yeah.
purpose of your CV,
Yes.
if you're applying to jobs now, before the end of your contract and so on, I would be putting fully qualified or newly qualified ACA onto your CV, just so there's no uncertainty.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, so the question here then is as well, somebody who's considering traveling to Australia, would it just be a matter of getting in touch with yourselves in Dublin, or should you reach out to the society in Melbourne to look into job opportunities there? So what I would say in the first instance, come and talk to us. And then what we will do then between myself and Dave is that we will give you all of the advice that you need in terms of making that move to Melbourne. And then what we can do is actually put you in touch with the relevant people there. We can also give you advice in relation to where you need to go to in terms of looking for job opportunities. We can also make a connection in for you then with the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia then as well. So come to us in the first instance and we will then facilitate those introductions. Okay, so somebody here interested in the Career Mentor Program, and particularly with an international focus, and maybe looking to speak to somebody in Canada. And from memory, we do actually have somebody in Canada. So if you email our general careers email address, so careers@charteredaccountants.ie with that question, and we will take you through the next steps there. So there's no.
To add on to that, Karen, as you know,
Yeah.
like I was speaking with, I probably spoke to about 5 different members in Toronto and Canada over the last 3 weeks, for whatever reason. So we're definitely getting closer internationally as an organization.
We are absolutely. So in terms of CPD, now that's probably one that I'll I suppose there's a question here in terms of registering yourselves for CPD, or does the firm do it? Like that is something that more or less kind of happens automatically. That obviously once you become a member, you do need to then make sure that you're keeping up to date with your CPD requirements. You will get an email or a letter at the end of each year, just reminding you of your requirements in that area. If you've specific questions or queries in relation to your CPD specifically itself, I would say just email cpd@charteredaccountants.ie or the careers email address, and we can deal with that. And there's a question here from somebody then that if you're doing the AITI exams, does that count towards CPD? And the answer is that yes, it would, because obviously it is further professional development. So you can actually include that in your overview and summary of your CPD. So that's not an issue there. So, but look, happy to take any further questions around CPD, and if that person would like to reach out to me directly, more than happy to take those questions directly. Now, there's a couple of others here. So would taking up a one or two contract roles reflect badly on the CV to future employers? And Dave, you touched on that a little while ago, so you might just elaborate on that, whether you feel if you were to take up a couple of contract roles as a your next step, how would that look to future employers?
Yeah, like we see this quite a bit, Karen.
Mm,
Particularly if we're talking specifically about newly qualified members.
mhm,
Um, like as I said, it can be a really good idea to pick up a contract uh,
mhm,
or two, back to back, just to suss out whether a company is suited to you, whether you like the culture,
mhm,
whether it's going to be a fit for you, whether you like the sector. Um, you know, it could be a case of stepping into a finance division, and do you like the feel and the dynamic of that with a non-committal kind of basis. The nice thing
mhm,
about a contract is that if, for example, if it's a maternity cover contract and it's topped and tailed at
mhm,
10 months, it means that if it's going fine, it served a purpose on your CV. It's got a certain additional skill set
mhm,
on there for you. It's got maybe a branding, if it was working with Google or whatever, you know, but you almost want to just cut it at that stage and move on to the next phase. Like it's perfect. And because
mhm,
it's not like you're jumping out and you're quitting a permanent job after 10 months time.
mhm,
So it can fit quite well as
mhm.
a first step out of practice.
Absolutely. And
So
we often find actually people or members who go into what are initially contract roles, they can often be made permanent. And it's a great way of trying something out, isn't it, to see whether you like it or not, or whether you like the culture or the fit within the organization as well. So it can be really useful in that way too, can't it?
the proviso to it maybe is just to, say you were to do a 12-month contract and then you did another 10 or 12-month contract after that, and then you start being viewed as a serial contractor. Now, that's not really a huge concern for newly qualified
Mhm,
ACAs, but it's just something a little further down your career path
mhm,
to be vigilant of. If you start doing contracts back to back, that you can get a
mhm.
little bit of a tag
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, you do need to be careful. So another question here are the one-to-one coaching sessions only available to members, or can we avail of them if we are still awaiting acceptance of membership? And the answer is yes, you don't have to be a member to avail of the coaching sessions. If you are approaching the end of your contract, you've completed your exams, do reach out to us. You don't need to wait till you're fully qualified. There's another question here then. It's great to see all the questions coming through. How do I make sure that my CA diaries meet all the requirements to avoid delay to be qualified? So what I would say there is that you need to contact our training support unit. So there's our colleague Hugh Carroll in the training support unit will happily go through the CA diary with you to make sure that you have the various different elements of that completed, so that like he's there with his team, happy to help you with any questions or queries. So his email address is simply Hugh, Hugh dot Carroll, which is CARROLL at charteredaccountants.ie. And similarly, if you want to send any other questions around that through to the careers email address, we can pass them on. So one other question here. So 6 months post qualified in industry. Okay, so the person is saying that they just don't find industry interesting at the moment. Should I wait a year to put 1 year PQE on CV, or should I change now and try and get into an industry I like? Any thoughts on that, Dave? Like somebody who's 6 months, post qualified, is an industry not really doing it for them. They're just a little bit unsure as to whether they, like I suppose they're saying, look, I don't really like it. Should they wait for the year, or should they start looking to get something else in industry now that they would prefer?
I think there's probably two answers to that.
Hmm.
Depending on the circumstances that you probably need to chat through. One argument would be, if it's not working for you, as I said, you're in year one, pull the plaster off and move on and step into the next thing that you do. You now know you will enjoy. Um, and the other answer would be maybe give it the year. It does look better on a CV in some respects,
Hmm.
but it does depend on the circumstance.
Of course.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
that was my
Like
take on it.
I think what I would just add to that, if I can, is like, I would suggest that you come and talk to us, because it'd be really important to understand what it is about the industry or the role that it is, like what it is that you're not, happy about, why you feel it's not working for you, why it is that it isn't a fit. And there can be lots of learnings from a situation like this. I know it's not ideal, but if you can really identify what it is that makes you happy in a role, what gives you job satisfaction, if you can do that at an early stage of your career, it can actually be really quite liberating. That it gives you a good, I suppose, sense of what it is you enjoy, and it's a good compass, I suppose, isn't it, to bring with you throughout your career. So I would say think long and hard about it, and really just make sure, I suppose, that you're learning from this experience, and it's helping you to really find the career path that best
And
suits
there was
you.
actually just a little add on to that, Karen. There's a
Yeah.
couple, like I mentioned about you heading into a research phase at the moment. I suppose this does highlight it's like, you're always allowed to get it wrong. Everybody in the career path makes, decisions and choices that aren't right, and you're always allowed leeway on that, particularly at the early
Hmm.
stage of your career. But do try to really research companies and roles that you're heading into as
Hmm.
much as possible. Um, why do I say that? Um, you know, like the reason I say that is because it's good to speak to like a really good clued in recruiter who understands ACAs, or ourselves. We often call the careers team in the institute a sounding board for members. A completely impartial viewpoint on things. So, if you have decisions to make about offers and things like that, will give you a different perspective on it. And one point I left out in my talk actually was just about thinking 2 moves ahead.
Mm.
And point around that, like it's very important all the way through your career path that you should ask yourself when you're faced with an offer, if I take this, what does it mean for the next step in
Mm.
my career? You
Right.
have to remember that your
Hmm.
CV and your career, in essence, is a series of building blocks, and one has a knock-on effect on the next one. So the
Hmm.
job that's in front of you now, in terms of the offer and acceptance, will impact where you go in the next 2, 3, 5 years after that. So it's a very important consideration.
It is, and it's a really good point just to think a few steps ahead. And you think, well, look, if I take this job now, how will that position me in 2 or 3 years' time for my next role? And how does that fit in then with your overall career plan? So we've one other question then as well, which is saying here, if we hope to work abroad once borders open, would you recommend staying put within practice or move into industry to gain some experience first? Any thoughts on that, Dave? So, do we stay in practice or move into to industry?
We wrote something on this recently for the student newsletter, actually,
Yeah.
because it's one of those big questions facing every new qual. Like, do you stay on? So, say for example, if you were in Big Four trained,
Mhm.
the partners would put in a question to you at the moment: Are you going to stay on with us? You might be invited to stay on.
Indeed.
Sometimes staying for 6 months can be a good option. It gives you a bit of lets the dust settle. It gives you a bit of time to think, time to assess and research the market, etc.
Mhm.
Equally, if you're done with audit, and if audit's where you've been and it's not for you, then rather than hanging around, like the same expression, pull the plaster off and get moving.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that's. I'm just reading like.
Yeah, like I think as well, I suppose it depends on what opportunities are coming up in the market that you're moving to as well. So I would judge that, I suppose, based on what is available in the marketplace. Also as well, think about, like, to your point earlier, Dave, about thinking a few steps ahead. So if you're thinking about like coming back to Ireland, say in 12 months time, like what kind of role do you want to see yourself in at that stage? Like if you're saying, look, oh, actually, do you know what, industry is for me, then when you move abroad, trying to kind of get that industry experience abroad might make sense, so that when you come back, that you do have that industry experience under your belt. So I'd say judge it on a case by case basis. Think about what it is you want yourself, and see what opportunities are out there as well. But do think that little bit ahead as well. So we have another question then here, which is, how beneficial is it to have managerial experience in a Big Four firm before entering industry? Does it really bump you up the ladder? Can you expect to be guaranteed a managerial role in industry if you've attained a managerial experience in Big Four? What do you
Yeah,
think, Dave?
interesting one. double-edged sword, I think, that one, because like we both speak to members about this a lot, and
Mhm.
we're conscious of the hierarchy within practice where you might move up to, or the senior AM
Mhm.
manager, senior manager, AD, etc. Um, the further up the ladder you go in Big Four, um, you know, let's call a spade, the more expensive you get. So jumping out into industry can be a little bit more challenging the higher up the ladder you go. So so to move out, for example, at senior manager level into industry directly, not having industry experience at say a 70, 80K salary level can be quite challenging. Similarly, that halfway mark of manager level, where you're probably in a mid 60s or early 60s salary level. In industry, the roles at that level, you're veering into kind of senior financial accountant or maybe junior finance manager level role, and to jump into roles like that without having industry experience can be a little bit of a hurdle. Certainly happens all the time, like, and it's easily overcome, but you have to remember that you're up against competition who might have industry experience as well. So I'd be careful of that a little bit, just like going through the motions to get through to manager level and then jump out of industry into industry if that's your intention. Um,
That
you
said,
might
though,
jump out at the level. Yeah.
yeah. No, that said, though, obviously, I suppose being able to show on your CV that you have been promoted and you have progressed is a really positive thing, because obviously, you're not going to be promoted unless you have, proven yourself and you have the ability to move forward. And similarly, then as well, like actually having that people management experience is really important as well, because for a lot of roles at a senior level, what organizations are looking for is that managerial leadership skill set, and certainly within a practice and Big Four environment, you'd absolutely get that in terms of I suppose particularly managing jobs end to end, and that I suppose almost that project management approach, which is a really a valuable skill set. So there are a number of considerations there. So I think that probably covers the questions to date. I'm just double checking here. Yeah, I think we've covered everything off, but we're more than happy to take any further questions in our email. So you could email us at careers@charteredaccountants.ie. We really thank you for joining us here this afternoon, and we look forward to hearing from you and to arranging one-to-one sessions with you over the coming days and weeks. And please feel free to reach out to us with any further questions. If any questions come to mind after the session, more than happy to take those. So if you pop us an email, and we'll certainly be in touch. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.